Welcome, Earth Animals, to Ask Our Vet Live. Today, again, remotely from the Ash Creek, what we call the fish tank studio behind me. I'll tell you why I think that's very topical in a minute. Welcome back, all our loyal watchers and listeners. I'm your host, Dr. Kris. For those of you who don't know me, I am a small animal veterinarian with at this point, over 25 years of experience in the small animal realm. I also am a part of the Earth Animal family doing product development. I will tell you, I'm very excited about our show today. Our topic today is all about kelp. All right, we're going to tell you why you should be interested in this. We're going to tell you why this whole amazing opportunity is in this sea crop, and how it is beneficial for people, beneficial for animals, and beneficial for the planet. My guest today is Jesse Baines, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Atlantic Sea Farms, located in the beautiful state of Maine. Just a little quick overview. Atlantic Sea Farms is the first commercially viable seaweed farm in the United States. Was founded in 2009 with a goal of diversifying how our coastal waters are used and providing a domestic, fresh, healthy alternative to imported seaweed products. We have partnered with them because we are very like-minded, the two companies, hugely like-minded in our missions, okay? And again, our missions to the planet as well as to the people and the animals on it, right? We're, at Earth Animal, we talk about we're all Earth animals. We're all interconnected, the entire planet. So to be like-minded, we always try to work with like-minded businesses in our ultimate goals, okay? They are the farmers and suppliers of the kelp that we use in our new Perfectly Plain Kelp Jerky product, okay? We're going to get into that. We're going to get into their business. Jesse has some great stories and some hugely interesting facts about kelp. We're going to talk about nutrition today, all right? And one thing that this is kind of breaking news that I found out very recently is that Pet Business Magazine has named the Earth Animal Perfectly Plain Kelp Jerky as a top pet product in 2021, which is awesome. Great award. And it was for its sustainability and its innovation. So kind of breaking news, very cool. And kudos to everybody involved with the supplying and the making and the idea for this. And we're going to get into this product in depth in a little bit. So welcome Jesse's show. I want to welcome you, Jesse. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you, Dr. Kris. I appreciate you having me. This is great. This is my first time talking about pet food. I'm very excited.
Yeah, no, it is exciting, and it's very cool. And again, it's so innovative, and to bring this product from production to, from just an idea to a final product. And I think the product is tremendous. So again, we'll get into that. So let's talk a little bit. I wanted to give you the floor a little bit here and just talk about Atlantic Sea Farms and your history with it, and kind of give us an overview.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, Atlantic Sea Farms was founded in 2009 as the first commercially viable kelp farm in the country. It was started by a couple of people who were really good at kelp farming, but not necessarily great at selling kelp. So they worked on the process of building kelp aquaculture in the US and figuring out the formula for that up here in Maine from about 2009 to 2018. And then in 2018, our current CEO, Bree Warner, took over and really exploded the opportunity for kelp aquaculture in Maine in a really exciting way. And what we realized was that we don't need to do the farming ourselves. We have about 4,000 lobster license holders in the state of Maine who are really, really good aquaculturists. And I'll kind of dig into that for everyone a little bit later too. So since 2018, we've gone from, about 40,000 pounds of kelp in the state of Maine. And this year we're looking at over 1 million pounds of kelp. And that kelp is going to restaurants, it's going to fast casual chains, it's going to our own retail products, and it's going into Earth Animals Kelp Jerky as well. And so we can kind of dig into the sustainability reasons behind growing that so quickly. But essentially what it means is a really great opportunity for those of us who really, really care about where our food comes from, both for our pets and for ourselves.
Yeah, and again, I'd imagine, it's really important when you're anything we're putting into our bodies, anything we're putting into our pets' bodies, and it's very important at Earth Animal, and I know to you as well, is you need to know where your product's sourced because obviously not all sourcing is the same remotely. And so to have this, literally farmed in our backyard domestically, and having a seed to table, right? I guess would be instead of farm to table, but having a seed to table and knowing where this product begins and ends is hugely important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, kind of a key statistic that stands out for me is that 98% of the seaweed consumed in the US is grown overseas. And most of that is coming from often it's from Southeast Asia, where there's compromised water, often questionable labor practices, and very little traceability. And I think at a time when we're all facing down climate change and kind of wondering what we can do better, we're looking at solutions like, we're looking at recycling, using less plastic, using all these things. But the way we eat is such a huge input as far as climate change goes. And then pet food is that as well. So the opportunity for us here in Maine to make a really big impact on that, 98% of seaweed, that market is huge. What can we do to grow it sustainably, regeneratively, and with good people who are doing good work on behalf of their own coastal communities, but also on behalf of kind of working towards a better future in the face of climate change?
Yeah, it's great. I thought also, I think one of the important things to talk about here is kind of the business model in the sense that, obviously you have this kelp farming, but the idea behind it and using local fishermen and why that's important as well, sustainability as well as for the people involved in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, the opportunity for us as consumers is that what we're looking at is notoriously clean water, right? Just like you don't want your vegetables grown in dirty soil, you want your seaweed grown in clean water. And so Maine has that. We have a really viable fishery up here. The Maine lobster industry is notoriously one of the most sustainable fisheries in the world. And one of the reasons for that is because they're incredibly good stewards of their resource and of our local waters, which means we have very high water quality monitoring standards here in Maine. So the baseline has been set with that, right? And then in addition to that, while the community of lobster fishermen have been incredibly good stewards of their resource and of the Gulf of Maine, the Gulf of Maine is still warming faster than 99% of oceans worldwide. And so we're facing down a volatile future for the fishery. Right now, the fishery is really, really strong. But what does that look like in 5 to 10 years? We don't know, right? It could continue to thrive, could change. But one thing we can't change is how fast that Gulf is warming. So what we can do is offer a way for them to adapt in the face of climate change. And kelp aquaculture provides that opportunity. So what that looks like structurally is their lobster traps come out of the water right around now. A lot of Maine lobstermen are done right around Thanksgiving, Christmas time. And then their kelp farms go in. So we're actually seeding kelp farms right now as we speak. We're using all the same boats. They're using all the same infrastructure that they use for lobstering, boats, knot tying, a generational understanding of working on the water that you cannot teach. And I think all of these things combined make them incredibly good kelp farmers. So that's really the opportunity for them, is to utilize the infrastructure and the boats and as small business owners, we all know what it's like to invest in all of this equipment. And then do you want to see it sit idle for 4 months out of the year? Probably not, right? So let's put it to use with kelp farming. And that's what we're doing right now. So we're seeding those farms with them right now. And we have about 27 partner farmers all up and down the coast. That kelp will grow over the course of the winter, and then we'll harvest it in the spring and make it available for consumers of kelp in their own kitchens, of pet food companies, of restaurants, of high-end chefs. Everybody can access that kelp throughout the year.
Oh, and you have a personal, so in addition to these professional ties, you do have as well a personal tie in the fishing industry as well, correct?
I do, yeah, I do. So I come from a fishing family. My dad and my cousins and my uncles and everyone up in Midcoast Maine, everybody fishes, and so all lobster fishermen actually. And growing up in that industry, I think it really teaches you. This is something that I didn't realize at the time, but I think it taught me personally how to just be really thoughtful about where my food comes from and consider the people who are behind it. Lobstering is incredibly hard work. It's really, really hard work and very dangerous work too. So there's more behind that lobster that you might get at the restaurant, a lobster roll, than
Right.
maybe people realize. And some of that means a risk for families, but they wouldn't have it any differently. And I think that's the other thing that you learn if you spent any time up in Maine, that we are very loyal to our lobster fishery here. And it really is a driving force for our coast, but also our personality as Mainers. We're very tied to it and dedicated to it and loyal to it.
Right.
And I think a lot of that has to do with lobster, but a lot of that just has to do with working on the water. And we have a lot of pride in that work. And so whether it's lobster or it's, ground fish, the ground fish industry up here in Maine isn't as strong as it used to be, or it's scallops, or it's whatever species you're talking about, the ethos is very much the same. And so what we see is a way forward through aquaculture, whether it's mussels, oysters, or kelp, for our working waterfronts to continue to thrive as the volatility of climate change kind of hits us on the coast of Maine.
Well, something when you and I had talked last week and got together and just had a conversation about this, which is really, the whole process is hugely interesting to me. Like I was saying to you, I've been walking around my clinic for days now, telling everybody about all my coworkers about kelp. Do you know this? Do you know that? Do you know this? And so it's very exciting to me to learn about it. But something dawned on me in the middle of our first conversation, and it was that fishermen and farmers are really just they're almost identical in what their commitment is to job. Their commitment is, they tend to be, our society, unfortunately, to climate change, to all sorts of things, tends to be much more reactive than proactive. But small family farmers are really no different than fishermen. These, they tend to pass it on from generation to generation. They're very in tune with changes in climate, obviously, because it directly affects their livelihood. And it's there's a lot of parallels there. So the farming thing, I would imagine, for a fisherman to take on farming in some form is really just an extension of what they've been doing their whole life.
Absolutely. Absolutely true. It's more than just the same skills, right? It's the same dedication to a healthy ocean,
Right.
and all of the creatures that are there in it. And exactly. And I think I kind of realized that in my own kind of career journey before I came back to working with waterfront communities. I was working in organic dairy, and I was going and visiting all these beautiful small family farms out in Vermont and upstate New York. And I was like, these guys could be my uncle. Like this is the same. They're really just focused on soil health and pasture health and the animals themselves and all of these sorts of inputs that help them not only do their job well, but really love their work. And I think that fishermen have very much, I don't want to broad brush people, but like in my experience, the fishermen that we work with in particular at Atlantic Sea Farms, they're great at really recognizing their surroundings, recognizing opportunity, because that's really important. This isn't a nonprofit, right? Like they've got to be able to make money at this work. And so we are really in tune with that need, and making sure that that's something that they can do, and supporting them throughout the process to make sure that they can do that. But I think that really just keying in on the opportunity for them to not only make money at this work, but also improve ocean health while they do it. And that's what we mean by regenerative kelp aquaculture. Kelp is a regenerative crop in that it pulls carbon and nitrogen out of the water with every harvest. And while it's in the water, those kelp farms are locally mitigating effects of ocean acidification. So they're creating a better habitat for the other species that are existing within the health halo of that kelp farm while they're in there growing. And so that's a really compelling thing for a fisherman, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to make money at this. This is great. I'm going to use I'm going to use my boat. I'm going to get to keep my stern man employed throughout the winter, which is a really important thing as a small business person. I'm going to create something that maybe my kids can do in the future as well, which is also a really important thing to a fisherman. And I'm going to be able to improve the health of the ocean while I do it. Like, what is the drawback here? And there isn't one. Yeah, there isn't one. The only challenge with that isn't necessarily that aspect of it. That's a very clear path forward. What we need to do as kelp consumers is help spread the word and get the idea of domestic clean Maine kelp out there as an opportunity for people who are either doing product development for animals or people or cooking with it in their own homes.
Right, which is where the partnership comes in, right? Which is where a partnership with like-minded businesses, both in the people space and in the pet space, like with Earth Animal, when you share these common goals of bettering our planet and sustainability and all these things, they're not, they're natural partnerships. They work well, And getting back to one of the things that I was thinking about when we were talking about, how when we get back to farming and we get back to aquaculture and fishing is, there's a reason why that a lot of the fishermen, a lot of farmers are so proactive because they literally have their finger on the pulse of what's going on before most of us. They can see, they know very intently if the fisheries are dwindling, right? They know if what the crops are growing like. So it is, they tend to be very proactive in their stances. So I think it's such a good marriage to have them doing this aquaculture. And from a sustainability point, it's amazing as well. I think the other thing too, I wanted to talk about a little bit is, so you're doing aquaculture, you're growing them. I think some people would have questions. Well, are you growing them on these big nets? Are you, and I think it is important that the other part of that is they are growing on long lines. They actually make little, why don't you tell us about that? How I'll let you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I wish we had one in your little tank behind you.
I told you I'd like
a miniature
I would like
version
to do my own little farm in here. We can support just the Ash Creek, my clients and us. We can make our own little one in here. But
absolutely, you totally could. So kind of the mechanism behind what we're building here. So we work with 27 partner farmers all up and down the coast of Maine. No one area is particularly dense with kelp farms, right? We spread it all out, not only to spread the opportunity out up and down the coast, but also to protect our supply chain and also keep everything low impact, right? So from the surface, you wouldn't know you're looking at a kelp farm. Essentially, what you think you're looking at are a bunch of lobster buoys, is what it looks like, which is lovely, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of the above the surface viewpoint. And then, so essentially what that looks like from beginning to end and how we get there is we provide all of the kelp seed for our partner farmers for free. And so we have what we call the Kelp Cultivation Center in our shop in Biddeford, Maine. And there we grow, we spore off and grow and prepare enough kelp seed to yield about 1 million pounds on the other side of harvest. And to get there, we only use 15 pounds of wild harvest kelp. So from 15 pounds that we go out and we forage for ourselves, we look for the best quality that we can find. We are able to create 1 million plus pounds on the other side, which I think is just incredible. If we're talking about efficiency. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And so we put so essentially we spore them off under controlled circumstances, create these seeding spools that we then hand off to our partner farmers. That's what's happening right now. And they're taking those spools and they're seeding them onto open ocean farms. And the way that those farms are set up is essentially very similar to a land-based farm. If you think about corn rows, right?
Right.
That's essentially what we're doing, except it's about 7 feet below the surface on a line. And that line has been seeded, and the kelp, instead of growing up like a corn row would, it grows down into the ocean. Yeah. And they're all very small. They're between 1 to 4 acres generally. They're very, very low impact, but and that's intentional. And they're close to shore. So that's the other part too. They're very easily accessible by the partner farmers. They're not these big offshore farms that take as much carbon, fossil fuels to get to as it takes out of the water, right? So essentially that's the other part of it. Tending the farms is very low impact. Once they're seeded, they kind of just let them grow. We check them a couple times a month with them to do just a farm audit for quality and just making sure that things are going the way we want them to. But essentially between now and April, May, June, we're leaving them be. And in that time, that 15 pounds of wild harvest kelp turns into 1.2 million pounds of harvested kelp on the other side. We also use the entire plant. So, I think another important thing when we're talking about climate change is talking about efficiency of growth and lack of waste. And so really, it's less than 1% waste on the products that we create on the other side. And I think that's a really compelling piece. In addition to that, there's no inputs, right? So you're not talking about any land. There's no fertilizers. There's no pesticides, herbicides. You don't even have to water it. You don't have to feed it. You have to do nothing. It just grows. And so that, I think, when we're talking about climate action, is one of the most compelling things for me, is just the efficiency of how this kelp grows. And then on the other side, you're talking about one of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet.
Well, so, I mean, I can't think, if I'm trying to bring another crop to mind, I don't know if there'd be another crop that's more sustainable and more, better on, it's, you have no runoff. You don't have to worry about and the other thing I think that we had talked about before is it's key that this is all close to shore too, because obviously with so the carbon footprint is less with this than most fishing, obviously, because a lot of times with fishing, you have to go distance, right? Yeah. So to me, that also is a huge, huge benefit.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of one of the things, and that's what, the founders of Atlantic Sea Farms back in 2009, the handbook that they created is still what's used in a lot of, kind of smaller ventures today. And, I have to say that in the 3 years that we've been working with fishermen, they've innovated 5 times over because it's what they do. They can't help themselves, right? They got to with everything and just make it better. And so we learn from them every season. And that's a huge part of this community. And it's really what it is. My dad's a kelp farmer. My cousin is getting into kelp farming. We are very close. These are our neighbors. These are our friends. These are literally our family in certain circumstances. And they're all collaborating and calling each other on the phone and asking how are you doing your moorings this year? How are you tying this off? Like, what problems did you solve last year that might be helpful for me this year? And I think that is an incredibly important part as we all look at how to improve our food system, and how we source food and build better systems moving forward. I think, creating a way for us, a company like us, what we essentially do is aggregate small farms. So we create a model that allows small farms to thrive and not have to become these big behemoths that are taking on all this debt, right? Which is what we're seeing in land-based agriculture. Right. What we can do is provide them a way to make their money back they're making a profit in their first season. And they're doing really good work while making good money, and they're collaborating and they're growing together. And right now we have a great wait list of partners who want to work with us as we grow.
That's great. It's a win-win, right? All around. You can't really see a downside. And, it's again why I feel like our two companies are so like-minded, because Earth Animal has always been committed to the small business, not to the, and with independent pet retail, and retail. And we've just, so I see such similarities in the companies, in their visions. It's a really good partnership. I think
absolutely.
It's great.
I would totally agree, Dr. Kris. I think that, kind of something that I've said a couple of times is, working with the team over at Earth Animal has been awesome because you guys have such a clear vision of what you want to accomplish. And for us, that's really, really refreshing and helpful because that's exactly what we're trying to communicate on our end too. So when we have two partners that come together and both have a similar vision and we see how we can support each other so clearly, that just makes the work that much more fun.
Well, and it's one of the things that, Dr. Bob and Susan, when they started the company Earth Animal over 40 years ago, doing things another way, looking out of the box at things, and really trying to be reactive and and proactive, and really trying to look at different ways of doing things that would have minimal impact, and on the environment, and helping pets and people in the greatest ways you could on non-traditional ways. And I had someone say to me all the time, well, when you talk about traditional things, and really a lot of these organic things are more traditional because they've been around a lot longer, right? Absolutely. And so it's something that Earth Animal and our co-founders have done way even ahead of the time, 40 years ago, when they're preaching all these things. And it's so nice as time goes on to look back and to say, oh my God, they started this so long ago, this vision, and just leaders in the industry in it. And it's just so nice to see other businesses doing the same thing.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's kind of one of the things, the opportunities that we see with what we're building with kelp aquaculture, is there's a lot of innovation there happening. We're definitely looking to the future, but what we're building with the goal is to preserve a lot of what we've built in the past. If we do this right, what we're essentially doing is preserving those iconic Maine working waterfronts that we all love. Right. And that's and the people who work that water and who are part of those communities, giving them a way forward, so that Maine doesn't become one giant yacht club. Yeah, I don't want that.
There you go. I was earlier this summer, I was at Farm Aid, and oh, yeah. They do change it around, but it's been in Hartford, Connecticut, a couple of last few years, and I actually am one of the people that goes and sits in the classes, right, and talks to but it's super interesting to me. And, you start to learn a lot about these family farms and how they're being pushed out by these large corporations, and the big difference between corporate farming and just these small, these small families that have been farming their land forever and really believe in sustainability and everything, and are just being pushed out. And so it's no different, I'd imagine, no different in the fishing industry and, the aquaculture industry. So it's good to have that. It's really good to support locally, hugely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I think just giving, and I think more than ever, people want to do that, right? I think that, everybody here, they're probably, the type of person who wants to know their farmer best they can, or at least know where their food is coming from and where their pet food is coming from, obviously. So I think that there's more and more of us every day. And I think that's a great opportunity to grow thoughtfully. And I think we don't want to make the same mistakes that land-based agriculture has made over the last 30 to 40 years with aquaculture. We really want to do it right. And we have an opportunity to build it from the ground up with kelp. So we're excited about it.
Well, and to me, I've been practicing veterinary medicine now over 25 years, and it is really refreshing to see we've had this change now, and I'm watching it, and I'm watching so many people that are coming into my clinic that are much more globally conscious, open to natural, things, and really are just have their eyes open to what's going on in the world, and are not just sitting back and letting things happen, that are being really, again, like I said, proactive. And it's really refreshing. And there's more and more of an outcry for us to protect our earth and to look at alternative energies and alternative farming and things like that. And to me, there's a real movement coming and here. And so, this is all part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think more than, we see it here with all of our pet loving, staff and our, friends and everything like that. And we all have our different levels of what lengths we go to for our, furry family members.
Right, right.
And it was so fun to have the kelp jerky presented to all the different doggos who are in our family of Atlantic Sea Farms. And I will say, all of them loved it and were obsessed with it very quickly, to the point where they needed to know where it was stored, sort of thing. How
right, looking for it.
Where is it? Except for one, our CEO's dog, who is literally the biggest trash eater of all time. So I feel like it's okay that this one dog was the one who was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah,
We were like,
too healthy. It's
yeah,
too
it's too
healthy. It's
good.
like, I'm good with the bones and the stuff that got thrown out in the garbage last night, right? Yeah,
Oh
well, hey,
man. Yeah,
um,
absolutely. It's okay. So
probably, we talked about obviously the impact on people already. We've talked about the sustainability. I think, part of what we wanted to talk to was about what benefit it can have for animals, right?
yeah.
So I think it's a good introduction to talk about the jerky, but talk about, when I was looking at, like I said, I was looking all things kelp and looking up how nutrient, and it's amazing. It literally is as nutrient dense as it gets, right? So it does make for a wonderful vegetarian treat. Okay. And we'll get into again why that's important on many levels. But part of this this kelp jerky is, again, it's vegetarian, right? There's very few ingredients. Obviously kelp being the first one in this. There's rice bran, and natural preservatives. It is, and it's pretty unique. Because when you think jerky, sometimes you think about, this hard kind of, hard to bite off things. This is, to me, I love the consistency of it, and it's great. You can see it. The other thing is, if you guys can see, there is a ton of kelp in this. I mean, you can see it. It's in there. And I was telling you this too before. I did go through my clinic and had everyone taste it at the, so I've been eating it, right?
I tried it.
This is this is people grade, and I know you make people products too. So I guess I could graduate to that, but for now, this is what I have, right? But what was amazing to me, and obviously kelp being so nutrient dense means it's got a ton of antioxidants, right? Vitamins, B vitamins. It's got calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, iron, potassium. It's got such great nutritional benefits. But what's amazing to me is, a lot of things a lot of products in the pet industry have to add flavoring to things. Okay, they call it palatants, right? They want to make something more palatable for pets. This has no palatants in it. It doesn't need it. And and again, I do have to do a disclaimer for anybody out there, because I did have someone write me and say, Dr. Kris, if one of their kids was eating some of the treats at, not the kelp jerky, but another treat, and they said, don't eat the treats. And they said, well, Dr. Kris eats the treats on the show. So I have to do a disclaimer. I have to throw a disclaimer out there. Children, obviously don't go in and eat the dog treats, but they are, it's amazing to me the taste on them, because when you eat something that from the sea, you expect a sea or fishy flavor. It's actually a very kind of nutty flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really, truly very good.
Yeah.
They really are.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things with that is that, kind of that natural umami flavor, I'm assuming that pets crave that too. I mean, that's what people love about it.
They're highly, highly palatable. My dogs love them, and again, the people in the clinic, when I was, my coworkers, they were kind of reticent. They're like, okay. And they tasted like this did not, they're like, okay, this didn't taste like I thought it would. I guess a lot of people think it may be fishy tasting or things because but it's not at all.
Well, that's because it's fresh too. Right. I think that's a big difference. So that's and that's something that's, for both people and for pets, is that, all the seaweed being eaten, except for what we're providing, is dried and then rehydrated or just dried. And so it's much more prone to that what we call a low tide taste. Right. So people sometimes, they think seaweed, they think low tide, like they think that kind of low tide taste.
Right.
And because of the way that we grow our kelp and harvest it at the perfect time at that, what we call baby kelp stage. So, it's kind of like a baby spinach or baby kale. It has that nice briny umami flavor. But it's not old. It's not old and chewy and it goes that next level. It's kind of like the kale that you can probably still harvest out of your garden today if you wanted to, but you don't want to, right? You want that stuff that's harvested in September, October. So that's kind of like a main difference. And in addition to that, and this was something that was super important to the Earth Animal team when we started producing the, or, kind of figuring out this product together is, we have that kelp in our facility being processed before the sun goes down on harvest day. So we're locking in all of that nutrient quality, but also the flavor and the freshness and all of those things. And obviously we take, we're supplying kelp to some of the biggest product developers in the country, and fast casual chains, and Michelin star chefs, and all of these different places. So obviously quality and food safety are ultimately hugely important to us, and obviously, super important to you all too. And I think it was just really refreshing to be working with a pet food company that took food safety as seriously as we do for humans. And I don't think that's normal. And so I was really happy to have that be part of the conversation really early on.
Right. And I think also when they go into this and they're looking at it, and looking at making treats and everything, and even in our wisdom food, this is what we do is, a lot of it when we make treats is we go with that wisdom model where we don't want to overcook something to the point where you've cooked all the nutrients out of it. You want to, and this is no different. I mean, this is, like you said, it's really fresh. And I really, really like the consistency, and I know the dogs do too. So it's snacking with a purpose, right? Which is kind of the similar thing, to people. If you're going to grab a snack, obviously you want to try to make it as healthy as possible, right? Yeah. So I love the fact that, that we have this, multiple lines of things that not only have their enjoyment in mind, but their safety and as well as their nutrition in mind, right? So it's always good. We are going to take, if anybody has any questions, we're going to take some questions from you, either one of us, if you have anything. I think we have a lot of people checking in. I'm sorry I missed the kind of highs we got into this conversation, and so like I said, I'm really, since I've been doing the research on this, I'm really into it. Just on so many different levels, because it really is super interesting to me. What you're doing, and I do love the combination of the companies. And the other thing too that I was amazed at, it grows really quickly as well, yeah. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of slow growing through the winter, and then the second that springtime sunshine starts to hit, because it photosynthesizes just like any plant, right? It grows up to 6 inches a day, so you can almost actually watch it grow.
That's wild. That's so cool. Yeah. So. Let's see who's checking in. Michael Cody says that he tried Sichi. It's quite good. Got to try it if you like kimchi.
Yay. Thanks, Michael. My favorite too.
So Jennifer had a question when we were talking about the 1 million pound yield. Is a lot, she said, obviously, right? Does the product, when it's processed, does it cook down a lot from that? Or you really, I mean, when you, it's 1 million pounds, you get 1 million pounds.
That's a really great question, Jennifer. Actually, so one thing we talk about with chefs a lot is the structural integrity of kelp. If you're using it to replace like a leafy green, for example, it holds its integrity. So it doesn't wilt when you dress it. And so that's kind of very similar to what we're talking about. We harvest it. That's over 1 million pounds wet. And then all of our products, except for one, are actually a wet product as well. They're fresh kelp. So that kind of equals out on the other side too.
That's great. Very cool. Yeah, it is amazing how many leafy greens you go from this to this, right? So it's good that you don't get it down that much. Cheryl Ann Fernandez has 2 questions. One is, and one I know the answer to, and one I don't. So this will be a good one, I think, for the team to get back to her on. But first question is, how did Earth Animal come up with the idea of using kelp in their customized pet jerky? And I think, what I'll say to that is our team. The team at Earth Animal is amazing, and they, the product team is always looking at this type of situation. What can we do? They put everything into it, sustainability wise, nutritionally, looking at obviously, things that can be vegetarian to be, as far as that impact goes. So I think this was something that, the team does research on. They look for companies, they come across a company, and then you reach out, you start to talk, and that's how ideas like this are born, right? And our product team is always looking at that. The second part of her question is, how much kelp does it take to make one package of jerky? And that I don't know the exact answer to. So Sherilyn, we can probably get back to you on that. I do know, Sherilyn, like I said, there's a lot of kelp in here. It's very kelp rich, but I don't know the exact answer. But I'm sure that we can definitely get you that. And obviously, I can tell you that because I think I'm going to be talking to you in the near future, Sherilyn. So I'll let you know when I find that answer. But good questions. Good questions.
I will say that Earth Animal has been, and I think this is where the partnership piece comes into such good play in answer to your question too. On some level, Cheryl, I can't quite get you the numbers, but the impact on our communities on the coast of Maine is large, and it's really helpful. And I think that's one thing, for our own products, we make sure that kelp is the #1 ingredient. And that was very much a part of this conversation too. They were like, we don't want to just add it in. We want it to be a featured ingredient because we know that's how we make a positive impact. And so that has been very much part of the product development conversation with this.
Right, to put it front and center so that and because that generates awareness too, and anybody, and I definitely, I encourage everybody to go to AtlanticSeaFarms.com and look at the story and look at their website. It is, the work that they're doing to me is amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
Let's see. One of the things I thought we'd do today, is, and we have Angel's coming in with one more. Let's see. Angel was talking about, she is seeing things like kelp powder at natural pet stores. How does that compare? And she said she can't imagine that her dog would necessarily eat the powder, but he loves jerky. So, I think, and I don't know how it would compare. I think, again, you have to know where it's sourced, right? I mean, that's the key with any of these products is they should be all the information should be on the product, where it's from, where it's sourced. There should be high visibility with that because that is really important whenever you're looking at a product. I do think, Angel, knowing Hendrix, I think Hendrix would love this jerky. So to that point, we do have I thought we'd do something fun and we just do a quiz question at the end here. So I'll throw out, it should be, if you've tuned in since the beginning, it should be a pretty easy one. So the first person that answers the quiz on the thread will win a bag of the kelp jerky. All right. US viewers only. Sorry, guys. But here's the question. In what state is Atlantic Sea Farms doing its amazing work? We mentioned it right from the top. So first person on the thread to answer that wins a bag of the kelp jerky. And while we're waiting, Maine, Jennifer. Nice job, Jennifer. You won. Good job. Good job. Oh, everyone's answering. Everyone wants a bag of it. Guys, it definitely, like I said, go to her. It is absolutely worth getting a bag of this for your little furry family members and letting them try it because it's not only nutritious, but it is tasty. All right. We had one more, I think, good, we had a good question from Jennifer, who just won, that she said, how many nutrients from kelp are lost in the processing? And this is really important when we start to talk about when you start to talk about the Earth Animal products, from the wisdom food to this, is that the way they're processed when we do low and slow or cold processing, it's really important that we do it that way because that minimizes impact on the nutrients. Things that are cooked at high heat, when you talk about things like dog kibble, things that are cooked at very high heat, a lot of those nutrients are cooked out because they're heat sensitive. So when we're processing things like this and we do cold processing and low and slow like we do on the wisdom, it actually preserves a tremendous amount of the nutrients in there. And that's why that's so important. And that's why this has the consistency that it does. Again, you can see the rice bran in here. You can see the kelp, right? And that's why it's like this. So we retain a tremendous amount of the nutrients, and that's really important. So good question. Now my mouth is full while I'm talking with the jerky. Listen, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I have to tell you, what you're doing is amazing, and it really piqued my interest. I think it's just so cool. You know, growing up, for me, I've grown up my whole life on the shore here in Connecticut and been, you know, really in tune with what's been going on in the Long Island Sound, which is our waterway here. And watching watching dwindling fish school, you know, things like that. And so I think, you know, anything that we can do in our fisheries, in our waters to help sustainability and just, you know, try to fight what's going on globally is huge. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kris. I appreciate your support and vote of confidence, because we still have a lot of work to do. So
right,
we'll keep at it.
Onwards and upwards, right?
Onwards and upwards, absolutely.
All right, great. Just a quick note. Anybody who liked what they saw today, please like it, like the video, share with your friends. You know, we have a great forum going here every other week. And so, you know, please continue to watch, have your friends come in. We are going to be back in another couple weeks before Christmas. We will tell you what that is. It will be a last show of the year. And it looks like we're going to do a veterinarian roundtable. So it'll be our holiday like we did last year. So please tune in for that. Again, thank you so much, Jesse, and have a great holiday.
Thank you. You too, Dr. Kris. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.